Hello and welcome to Trader Tuesday. I'm Merritt with Apteros. Hope you're doing great. We're glad to see the chat working. Everybody's saying hello. Yo, what's up, Kevin, Martin, Inigo, Denise? Nick, Edwin, Maria. What's up, Maria? Hussein, Nick, Michael, Ryan, Christine, and Ulas. Hope everybody is doing good here on a Tuesday. We got football kicking off. We got, that is the real football, American football. We got a little US Open action. Baseball winding to October. It's a good time to be a sports fan. Good time to be a trader today, huh? Good time to be a trader. Not a traitor, but a trader. Anybody ever get that? Sometimes people ask me what I do, and I say I'm a trader. I'm a, a lot of times I'll say, commodities trader, something like that. And when I just say trader, some people think I say I'm a traitor. So, I guess it takes all forms. All right, real quick. If you got a question, submit it via the Q&A. Today, we're here to answer your questions. We're here to mentor you, help you how I can. Use the Q&A for that and use the chat for general banter. Rafi says, in crude today around 10 a.m. Chicago time, there was a composite breakout pullback short entry. I passed on this as per my read at the time. We were still bullish against the monthly RPB, monthly IPB, confluent zone, not to mention the quarterly RPB. For me, these factors outweighed the bearish composite BPB. Do you agree with my take here, or do you think that was a missed opportunity? No, I certainly think that in crude today, let me pull it up real quick. There were more factors to lean long. Now, the line in the sand for all those factors is anywhere from 94.50 or 60s down to, let's call it, here's the problem. It's a wide array of references. So we have 94.60s on the weekly. We have this little confluent area, call it 94 on the monthly. And below there, you have the quarterly. The quarterly should be discounted a little bit because we have spent so much time above and below there, over the quarter, even though it is showing to be a reference that's respected. We've had a lot of condition shifts and a lot of acceptance picture changes above and below it. Okay. It's still a good reference, but it is discounted a touch. So by the time you're breaking down the lower edge of the current CVA 93.20 on a micro basis on some time frames and on a full basis, such as weekly prior value and whatnot, things have started to shift. So I think it's okay. I always love to, as I defer to lower time frames, I love to lean a little bit heavier on structural references. That is CVAs, PVAs. So it just really depends on your read at that time. Yeah, I'm not sharing my screen. I was just looking at it myself. It really depends on your read at the time as to the weighting of these various pieces and where you gave acceptance picture shifts and how you do that, right? If you did it on the intraday, well, then I think the short was there for the taking. If you were waiting for the full acceptance picture shifts on all the higher time frames, well, then there were some that were still, a bit more ambiguous or let me put it frankly, had not changed yet. Namely, the quarterly for sure, and the monthly hadn't quite moved. Let's call it halfway to VWAP or something, right? That's a touch lower. But by the time we're putting in those lows heading into 10 a.m. around 92.50, I think enough is starting to kind of shift to where you can consider the short. So again, it just depends on how you weighted all that, and how you read your acceptance picture shifts on what time frames, right? But the one big takeaway for you, Rafi, and for everybody is when you, 1 second. When you, what was I going to say? When you have a wide array, okay, of references, let me draw it. Right? Let's say that you're coming into an area that's bullish, but you have a level here, you have a level here, and you have a level here, right? Obviously, we know that down here things are bearish, full on bearish, right? But there's some ambiguity. What if we've broken down 2 of them, right? And we get a weak pullback into here? Well, depends on how you rank levels 1 and 2 versus level 3, right? Ranking and distilling really, really matters. And like I said, where you're reading that acceptance. But anyways, the point I want to make is let's say that all of these are really higher time frame, longer term VWAP type stuff. I really like to defer to concrete. What's concrete? Structure, right? VWAPs are more ethereal, ephemeral, right? Market profile, or any form of profile, and when you're really leaning on edges of established balance, there's just no 2 ways around it. It's real, it's concrete, it's there, as opposed to some measure of some more dynamic reference over a almost randomized period of time. You know what I mean? Profile is much more closer to what a word I like to use in my trading, and what I'm always looking for is kind of more of the truth, right? And profile gets us there. So I think when you have, let's say, a profile reference here, well, guess what? Short term, as a day trader, us clearly rejecting it, right? That's an opportunity. Again, depends on how you read all the other stuff. But I like the conservative approach. I like the fact that you didn't take, right? Like, trades are always going to be offered if you ignore enough things. Every single day, if you don't do a good enough job at NADRO ranking and distilling, reading the full picture, you will find a trade, right? For someone who's like what I would call an intraday position trader, looking to capture a great narrative and really hold it for the bulk of the day's range. You'll always find it if you ignore enough things or don't do enough due diligence across timeframes. It's traders asking questions like Rafi is here. Hey, I didn't take this today because this, and this. That's the more appropriate way to behave, right? That's the more appropriate way to trade NADRO as an intraday position trader. If you're scalping shorter term things, you're going to lean in more heavily on the shorter term things. In fact, some of you who have been around for a while, and I saw some of my desk traders here on the call, that there's been, the past couple weeks, there's been, or even a little bit longer, there's been a real lack of A+ narratives out there across a lot of markets. And this ebbs and flows, right? We see just things firing off like crazy, opportunities galore, and then we see quieter periods. And a lot of times, it goes back to the last time this happened. When was it? Last time volatility went through the roof quickly. Guess what? This down move is a big volatility increase, right? Ranges expanding, all this kind of stuff. And we move away from a lot of our references, and therefore things kind of have to settle and catch back up, if you will, for us to start to see some of these trades develop appropriately for us. Great question. Love the way you're thinking about these things. Good job. Edwin says, there are specific setups where I know what sort of conditions I'm looking for to execute. Rhythm, order flow patterns, etc. However, when the situation does present itself, there are occasions where I find myself hesitating and second guessing. Before I know it, the move goes. I understand the aspect of uncertainty and how there's no way I'll ever know if the setup's going to be a winner. I only have my setups and probability and risk. Yet I don't really understand what's causing this sort of response. Is it fear of being wrong? What are your thoughts? Well, my first question or task for you is going to be not to say, it's going to be for you to say, what are your thoughts? But instead, it's going to be directing it inwardly rather than to me. Those are my initial thoughts. And so you have to really search yourself in that moment. What causes the hesitation? As soon as you feel it, right? I do want to bring this back to process, okay? But when you have, two voices going on in your head or a little angel devil on your shoulder, however you like to view it, exactly when that happens. All of a sudden you feel that dissonance, you feel that, that kind of thing. You feel it. When you feel it, you have to assess it. It's going to be better for you to stop even looking at the screens and get you a pen and paper when that happens and just look inwardly right then. Forget about that trade. Consider it missed. Consider it gone. The price of that, whether it's going to be saving you a 1-hour stop or whether it's going to be preventing you from a 3-hour winner, doesn't matter. The price of figuring it out a little more deeply is going to pay huge dividends rather than whatever that one trade provided. So that's my first piece of advice. The second piece of advice, as I mentioned, we're going to come back to process. A lot of people, most people that I come across, have an idea of rhythm and order flow patterns and think the sort of conditions you're looking to execute in, as you said. But what they end up lacking and or what could be very helpful to them to put in, maybe temporarily, maybe permanently, is some process around what I call pulling the trigger. Okay. Pulling the trigger. Very, very important. And there's a million ways you could do it, and none of them matter. This touches on my argument, which is, you really don't see anyone else out there agreeing with on Twitter or anything like that. But my argument is that execution, while people think it's the most important thing and the only thing that matters, if you can't execute, nothing else matters, blah, 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 blah. That's true, but only in the little tunnel vision microcosm that most people view it. If your read on context is so good, there opens up to you a million ways to just go simply execute, because guess what? No form of execution will ever be perfect. So why do people go place all the emphasis on execution? It's a lie. It's a mistake. It's a misunderstanding. It's semantics, but it's problematic for traders trying to develop. So I'll come off my soapbox here and talk to you again, Edwin. Come up with, and I'm looking at the chat in case you want to say something to me as we go through this. Come up with a very objective, very specific entry trigger. You can use price action, bars. You could use order flow. You mentioned that if that's what you want to do. You could use something as simple as a MACD histogram. You could use something like RSI being below a certain threshold and starting to turn up. You could use stochastics. You could use any number of these oscillators, right, which are showing momentum and shifts in momentum. You could use anything, right? It could be a certain rotation size within a zone, right? Like you're looking to get long, you know that the current rhythm is XYZ, you get that counter rotation of XYZ, you just put the trade on, right? So there's, like I said, there's a million ways to really execute, to get into these good ideas. And none of them are ever going to be perfect. None of them are magic. But the most important thing here is that we at least temporarily get you kind of what I call bumper lanes, right? If you're bowling, or training wheels, if you want to use the riding the bike analogy. Let's get you a set of training wheels on here, and let's know with beyond a shadow of a doubt exactly where you've done the work. You know that we're getting to one of your opportunities, the conditions for that, right? Now let's be more mechanical with an entry, right? So what that's going to do is remove a little bit, no, regardless of what, I don't really care so much about your psychology, man. Think about that. Am I just a jerk? No, I understand that if you develop better process for pulling the trigger, it's not going to really matter as much how you feel. Okay. Again, I'm one of the only people who preaches this out there, but you actually want to remove self in a lot of ways rather than focusing more on self. Let's focus more on process. Let's focus more on market generated information, and let's give ourselves training wheels and guidelines to make decisions and do the things we need to do, whether that's managing an open trade. The same type stuff happens. We could talk about emotions and fear and greed and all these things that happens to all humans. It's not really that interesting anymore, right? We all feel the same way. Or we could get serious about how you're supposed to manage a trade, right? How are you supposed to enter into a trade once you move through that decision tree of process to the point of potential entry, like literal actually pressing the button. And if you remove that ambiguity, now, guys, if you're sitting there trying to figure out what you should do ambiguously, right? Trying to feel it out. Do I want to do this? You're trying to like source that from within yourself in the heat of the moment, where all of a sudden you're faced with risk and losing money and all the things that can now trigger psychology and emotion. That's not the way to do it, especially for you guys trying to develop, trying to figure it out, trying to come up the learning curve, right? Let's simplify that. Anyways, I mean, we've only been through 2 questions here. Yeah, I'm glad that was helpful, brother. Hope you sort through it. Christopher says, in your experience, what are some of the most common traits or tendencies of traders that have extended the timeline to consistency or caused them to quit altogether, particularly those that appear intelligent and have access to quality resources, education like Nadro? Holy crap, you guys are on fire today. My goodness. All right. Great questions. Some people are blind. What do I mean by that? Some people some people don't realize how amateur they are. And that's after trying this really hard, quote unquote, for a year, let's say. You should not be struggling with the very first sentences you ever read in any trading book. I just can't cut my losses. Just can't let my winners run. If you're at that point more than a couple months in, you need to wake up, right? You are like a child. You need to enter the world of adulthood and responsibility. That's one thing. I see people just not moving beyond, like, it's okay to do the natural human trader basics wrong and like think that that's like your main task. You need to make a decision. You need to actually develop process, and you fix it. That's one thing. Sorry, I am trading. Another thing are people who never were fully committed, and that can come in a couple different forms. There's a lot of people and they can't do anything about it because of life situation, and you got to pay the bills and everything, but they just don't have the time or the energy to be all in. If you're not all in trying to day trade, you will not succeed, right? People need to stop talking about how people say trading is easy and you can make money. No one says that, guys. The only people who talk like that are people who are just somehow trying to make themselves seem above the masses by saying that. No one says trading is easy. Literally no one. Right? I'm not talking about the buffoons with the Lamborghini they rented for the weekend for the video shoot for their Forex video. I'm not talking about those guys. I'm talking about real people. Nobody says trading's easy. Okay. It's not unlike any other massively difficult barrier to entry career, such as professional sports or whatever. Right. So if you don't have that mentality that you're trying to become a pro, and you let the gravity of that sink in, and then you pick up that torch and run with that, you're not going to make it. So what if we touched on here the kind of the mentality, the just the basic, almost physical time and energy that need to be devoted, right, along with that mentality. People who just can't kind of grow up quickly with like moving past the basic trader mistakes, and trust me, guys, I have all the sympathy in the world for taking time to move through difficult things. I was no different myself, right? But your question, let's bring this back to everyone. Your question was particularly, quote, those who appear intelligent and have access to quality resources, such as a NADRO student. That's kind of who I'm talking to here. So you're not out there like I was, spinning my wheels for so long with no real guidance from people who'd been there before. I tried to find that on like forums and, different places, and I didn't really find it. I was even, let's say, misled by what I thought was a mentor for some time as well. You have to take responsibility, right? You've all heard that a million times, but it's kind of a deeper thing than just like surface level. You truly have to there can't be any excuses or like, oh, I did this today because I woke up on the wrong side of the bed, right? Insert whatever kind of crap you want. And then repetitive mistakes. Let me take a drink here. Repetitive mistakes that you have identified, or a mentor or a peer has identified. They're in the light. They're not in the darkness anymore. You know you have a tendency of making XYZ mistake. Continuation of those mistakes is a lethal cancer to your trading. It will kill it. Okay. This ties in also with the mentality that you potentially need to get through that. And I've seen this on the desk with some people. I've seen this with students in the past. Losing begets losing, right? And I'm not talking about a losing trade. I'm talking about just losing the day the way we define as a NADRO person, winning the day, right? We redefine what it means to win. We lean on process goals. We lean on things that we can control, and we seek to win day in and day out. If you start losing at that, it becomes easy to lose, right? The segue into this was repetitive mistakes. So typically, if you're going through the process of setting a process goal, which maybe is one of your repetitive mistakes that you've seen and identified, we brought it to light, you can't let yourself down. You have to draw upon your integrity. You have to draw upon things like that to rise above it, and truly you have to realign your motivations. We're getting into mental framework here of redefining what it means to win. But you have to do that. You have to make your motivation for the next trade decision and the next trade management decision and the next entry and the next no entry, right? Even though you emotionally wanted to enter or re-enter or whatever, you have to make your motivations purely around the drive for consistency, the drive to execute a process goal, something that's within your control, something that you can seek to do that day flawlessly. And you cannot fall into the habitual cycle of losing that task. If you do, you will end up as one of the many students who fall by the wayside, who can't make it, right? You have to have an intolerance for that kind of thing. You have to demand excellence from yourself in the ways that you can control it, right? Not demanding excellence in terms of a dollar P&L goal that you set to make each day, right? That's amateur behavior. All right. Hope that was helpful. We've got about 15 questions here, but we're only going to take one more. Man, I mean, we could definitely end the webinar after answering those 3 questions, guys. What a great sequence of questions. Rafi, Edwin, Christopher, great stuff. If y'all want to follow up with any of those next week or in the chat or whatever here, let me know. We'll keep talking. Let's pick a good one. I'm just going to take the next one that came in. It could be a good one. How do you read context when price consolidates above the previous day's value area high? How do we read context when price consolidates above? I'm not sure if we're kind of doing this, something like that. And the answer is we are bullish as long as that continues, right? The acceptance where the bulk of these rotations are occurring. We don't mind if we have a little look in, right? That doesn't change anything. So don't go flipping out when this happens. This is how we focus on the concept of acceptance rather than, oh my gosh, we're 3 ticks below yesterday's value area high. Everything is broken. Let's flip the short, right? No. So you have to understand the concept of acceptance and where that bull line in the sand actually changes versus where price might fluctuate slightly beyond its threshold. Very, very important. But anyways, that's a bull line in the sand until proven otherwise. And we would have to go look elsewhere for what do we think about, if this trade starts working, right? What's here? Where are more levels maybe from other time frames, other value areas, composite value areas, and then you have to understand the full NADRO kind of ranking and distilling, looking at various references. What do we think about what's going on? And by the way, this bull line in the sand for yesterday's value area, that's just one simple time frame. And we never just look at one time frame for determining a true bull line in the sand for the session, like my DMIs, right? You would have a consideration that, well, there's an element of bullishness as long as we're holding above prior value. That's an element of bullishness, but that could be within higher time frame context of tremendous bearishness. So what might be the way to play it? You could be conservative and wait for a hold inside of here to then maybe find a short to align you with that even higher time frame bearishness, right? You could wait for the bullishness to break down on this, let's call it lower time frame context, right? So you got to put all the pieces together. But just to answer your question directly, bullish if we're above prior value. Now you do need to take into consideration the quality of the balance, right? If it's a long toothy trend day profile or multiple distributions, you got to be careful with that read on value. Go focus on balance. Let's see here. Just wanted to say, so Clutch, if you're looking, I'm not sure who you were looking to connect with there, but if you're looking to connect with someone from Apteros, just reach out to like support@apterostrading.com. You could talk to Hussein. He's a community, member or whatnot. But I can't tell you anything about Hussein. Okay. Guys, what a wonderful little session here. Great questions. I hope everybody took something away, some little nugget. That's always the hope. We'll see y'all next week. Take care.